International Criminal Court strongly condemns President Trump's sanctions on its officials. President El-Sisi and UN Chief Guterres reaffirm rejection of Gaza displacement, stress Palestinians must remain on their land. And German Chancellor Scholz rejects Trump's Gaza relocation plan. It's 8 p.m. Cairo local time, and you're watching Qnews. We begin today's bulletin with the latest developments regarding U.S. President Donald Trump's sanctions against the International Criminal Court and its members. The International Criminal Court has strongly condemned U.S. President Donald Trump's decision to impose sanctions on its officials. The court called on member states, civil society, and the global community to unite in defense of justice and fundamental human rights. The International Criminal Court reaffirmed its commitment to delivering justice for victims of crimes worldwide. Meanwhile, Dutch Foreign Minister Casper Veldkamp expressed his country's regret over the executive order imposing sanctions on the International Criminal Court, stressing that its work is essential in combating impunity. European Council President Antonio Costa has warned that sanctions on the International Criminal Court threaten its independence and undermine the international justice system. Costa's statement follows President Trump's announcement of potential sanctions, including asset freezes and travel bans, against International Criminal Court officials investigating U.S. actions. Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar has launched a scathing attack on the International Criminal Court, claiming it has no legal legitimacy and does not adhere to international law. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office described Trump's executive order against the International Criminal Court as a bold move that safeguards U.S. and Israeli sovereignty. The Hungarian foreign minister has defended U.S. President Donald Trump's decision to impose sanctions on the International Criminal Court, calling the move absolutely understandable. In a Facebook post, the minister accused the International Criminal Court of becoming a biased political tool and revealed that Hungary is now reassessing its cooperation with the court. The sanctions, widely criticized by human rights organizations and European leaders, have further fueled tensions between Washington and the international legal community. In a recent development, President Donald Trump has proposed a controversial plan to relocate Palestinians from the Gaza Strip, suggesting that the United States take control of the territory and redevelop it into a resort destination. This proposal has been met with widespread rejection from Gaza's residents and the international community.
The proposal by U.S. President Donald Trump to relocate Palestinians from the Gaza Strip has been met with overwhelming rejection by its residents, who remain steadfast in their determination to stay despite the destruction and loss caused by the ongoing conflict. During a joint press conference with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Trump announced an unprecedented plan in which the United States would assume ownership of the Gaza Strip, relocate its Palestinian population, and redevelop the territory. The proposal, framed as a solution to the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, has sparked outrage among Palestinians and the broader international community. For many in Gaza, this is not the first attempt to forcibly remove them from their homeland. Over the decades, Palestinians have resisted multiple efforts to displace them, vowing to remain on their land despite the devastation caused by months of Israeli attacks. Residents insist they will not abandon their homes, arguing that Trump's plan is nothing more than a pretext for US and Israeli control over the region. The rejection of the plan extends beyond Gaza's borders. International leaders, including officials from Egypt, Jordan, and several European nations, have strongly criticized the proposal, warning that it could further destabilize the Middle East. Human rights organizations have condemned the move as a violation of international law and a blatant attempt at forced displacement. Despite widespread expectations that the plan will fail, experts caution that it cannot be dismissed outright. They emphasize the need for coordinated Palestinian response and international mobilization to counter the proposal. Calls are growing for diplomatic efforts to reinforce global support for the Palestinian rights and prevent any further displacement. Local residents in Gaza have called the US proposal a veiled attempt to expel them, warning that such actions would only deepen the suffering of an already devastated population. As the situation unfolds, the fate of Gaza's 2.3 million residents remains uncertain, but their message is clear: they will not leave their land.
For more analysis, we now move to Hela in our newsroom.
Thank you very much, Salma. And for further analysis, we're joined from Ramallah by the Fatah movement spokesman, Mr. Ahmed Fattouh. Welcome to Qnews. Let's start by asking you, how do you evaluate President Donald Trump's decision to impose sanctions on the International Criminal Court, ICC?
First, thank you for having me. After 15 months of genocide and the total destruction, lively streamed for everyone to see, on top of 76 years of occupation and injustice, it's shocking that the Palestinian people are still not brought to their just land and not being justified by the United States. We expected from United States to the new U.S. administration to pressure Israel to end its occupation and to help the Palestinian people return to their homes and to rebuild Gaza and to end the occupation is the only solution forward. This sanctions on the court is illegal, is not accepted. The response by the international community, the massive response, indicates clearly that this is refused totally. It is a way to protect Israel from consequences for their crimes and genocide, which all legal experts and even Holocaust survivors have widely condemned and proved to be against the law and in the breach of the humanitarian law. We, the Palestinian people, after 76 years of occupation and genocide, we expected from the new administration to be the peacemaker that they wanted to be by ending the occupation. The response by the international community, the wide response by almost unanimous declaration and reassert of the two-state solution, it clearly indicates that we are not suffering from the lack of solutions or plans, but we are suffering from the lack of will, and that will need the United States to change its policies and to realize that the Palestinian people are suffering and have a just cause, and they require freedom and justice.
So what impact could these sanctions have on the ICC's legal proceedings, particularly in cases involving Israeli officials such as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu?
Of course, it's regrettable that these sanctions have been executed by the United States. It will, of course, hinder the work of the ICC, but the support from the international community, I hope it will fill the gap, and this unanimous condemnation of these sanctions reiterates that the international law and the international order. It's still the world demand, and I believe that the rest of the nations and the rest of world government is going to fill this gap and protect the ICC from any attack or collapse.
So, sir, how is the international community likely to react to the U.S. sanctions on the ICC, and what steps could be taken to counter them?
Now we heard all these statements from almost every country in the world refusing these sanctions, in Europe, in Middle East, in Africa, and everywhere. So we have a unanimous consensus that the ICC and the ICJ is of importance to the international, to the humanity and to the international law, and we will protect it. So these sanctions must be confronted. We have to confront it through the United Nations, and we have to confront it through the legal system, the world order that we have established after World War II to protect the world from, uncounted measures or from governments that want to adopt tyranny to the international arena. The world wants solutions and wants peace, and that peace comes by facing the occupation, not by hiding the occupation under the carpet and blaming the victim and discussing these crazy plans of moving the Palestinians out of their land. This is our land. We are here in our land and we will not move. We are unremovable and we demand our freedom, and the world is demanding for justice.
Yes, so do you think that the ICC will stand firm in its investigations into the war crimes in Gaza, or might the U.S. pressure force the court?
I believe the ICC would stand firm. The Hague Group that was announced just recently also reaffirmed that the world is not going to settle down to adopt any policies that violate or breach human rights. This is an international cause now. This is the ICC we are talking about. This is the top of the hierarchy of the international law. If we don't protect it, that means the total collapse of the total world order. Of course, there is no nation in the world and no government in the world would accept such calamity to take place. We have to defend the world order, and we have to defend our humanitarian universal law by facing the violators, by facing the occupation. I believe these decisions are not going to survive in front of the unanimous international response.
Mm-hmm. So what precedent do these sanctions set for international justice and the ICC's ability to hold world leaders accountable?
Well, they have the jurisdiction, of course, to investigate in the Palestinian territories, as we are members in the United Nations, the observer state, and they have all the right to protect the human right and the human dignity. The world is now demanding that this violation be confronted, not to happen again. When we said not again, when the world said in 1944, not again, is not again. This is the beginning of a collapse to the world justice system.
Yes.
And I believe that this unified front from the global government and this wide response that is categorically refusing such ethnic cleansing plans and these sanctions reassert that the world refused to adopt a global tyranny. This is the political power we have. They can't face the entire world. The entire world, we are talking about Europe, we are talking about the Arabs, we are talking about the Africans, we are talking about Latin America. So it is unanimous rejection of such approach. Because the peace begins when justice is applied, and justice demands that the Palestinian people who accepted 22% of their land, which is named the two-state solution, deserve to live free, not to empower and impose sanctions for the sake of the occupation that want to acquire more land, and even discussing to acquire lands in Egypt and in Iraq and in Jordan, in which has been named the Greater Israel by the ultra-right fascist Zionism. This has to be confronted as a crazy ideas that shall not take place in our political arena. The world needs to unite and to form a front
Yes.
to suspend the international law.
Sir, allow me to ask you, how could these sanctions impact the ICC's credibility and independence as a global judicial body?
I didn't hear you quite correctly. Could you repeat?
I was asking you, sir, your own point of view regarding these sanctions. How could they impact the ICC's credibility and independence as a global judicial body?
The ICC is credible. It is the higher authority of the law. The sanctions are to remove this credibility. It cannot be removed. When the world, the world is 194 countries. It's not just United States and Israel. When the world says we want the ICC, that means we want the ICC. And the sanctions must be confronted. And we should not allow these sanctions to take place. Whatever the sanctions that the actual body or content of this sanction, we have to face it. Those people are defending the law. Those people are protecting human rights and must continue their work in order to save the world from governments that will want to go out of the line.
So from Cairo, that was Fatah movement spokesman, Mr. Ahmed Fattouh. Thank you very much for joining us here on Q News. Now we go back to you again, Salma, in the studio.
Thank you so much, Hela, for conducting this enriched analysis. And now for the latest developments in Gaza. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres have reaffirmed their strong rejection of any attempts to evacuate or displace Gaza's residents, emphasizing the need for Palestinians to remain on their land. During a phone call, both leaders stressed the urgency of a two-state solution, calling for the establishment of a Palestinian state based on the June 4, 1967 borders, with East Jerusalem as its capital. They agreed that this should be the primary focus of the international community, as it remains the only viable path to achieving lasting peace and stability in the Middle East. Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdel Ati has held talks with his counterparts from Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, Oman, Bahrain, Jordan, Iraq, Algeria, Tunisia, Mauritania, and Sudan to discuss the latest developments in the Palestinian issue and the humanitarian crisis in Gaza and the West Bank. The discussions reaffirmed the unified Arab stance on Palestine, rejecting any attempts to displace Palestinians or encourage their relocation outside their homeland. Abdel Ati also emphasized ongoing efforts to advance early recovery projects, debris removal, and reconstruction in Gaza, stressing that Egypt remains committed to supporting the legitimate and inalienable rights of the Palestinian people. Israeli media have reported that senior military officials in closed-door meetings expressed skepticism about President Trump's plan to relocate Gaza residents. The officials reportedly aim to resolve the crisis without facing additional accusations of war crimes against Israel. They believe the success of Trump's proposal hinges on the willingness of Gaza's residents to participate. Israeli military sources have warned that President Trump's Gaza plan could worsen tensions in the West Bank, especially with Ramadan approaching. The head of Israel's military intelligence division has also warned that implementing the plan could lead to severe security repercussions. Israel's Defense Minister Israel Katz has ordered the country's army chief, Herzi Halevi, to reprimand the head of military intelligence, Major General Shlomi Binder, following his remarks on U.S. President Donald Trump's proposed takeover of Gaza. Katz stated the Israeli military officers must not speak out against what he calls an important plan regarding Gaza or contradict the directives set by political leadership. The move highlights growing tensions within Israel's security establishment over Trump's proposal, which has sparked widespread controversy both regionally and internationally. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has confirmed that many countries have rejected President Donald Trump's proposal for the future of Gaza. Rubio emphasized the dire humanitarian conditions in Gaza, citing widespread destruction and the presence of unexploded ordnance. He stated that rebuilding the territory would require relocating its residents. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu dismissed the need for U.S. forces in Gaza, describing Trump's plan as a post-war strategy for the region. The proposal continues to face strong international criticism, with concerns about its feasibility and the impact on the Palestinian population. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz has firmly rejected U.S. President Donald Trump's controversial proposal to relocate Palestinians from Gaza and place the territory under American control.
Was der Präsident Trump da so in den Raum gestellt hat, findet meine komplette Ablehnung. Wir dürfen nicht die Bevölkerung von Gaza umsiedeln nach Ägypten und Jordanien. Das ist nicht in Ordnung.
Lebanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs has affirmed that any attempt to seize Palestinian land and forcibly displace Palestinians is an attempt to liquidate the Palestinian cause and undermine the right of return for Palestinian refugees. The Lebanese Foreign Ministry expressed deep concern over plans to displace the Palestinian people and forcibly uproot them from their land, which is considered a historical and legal right under relevant international resolutions. Irish Foreign Minister Simon Harris has announced a €20 million aid package to support the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, UNRWA, in its efforts to assist people in Gaza. Harris called on Israel to reconsider its actions against UNRWA and urged other governments to step up funding at this critical time. He emphasized the urgent need for continued humanitarian support to help millions of Palestinian refugees facing dire conditions. Israeli occupation forces have conducted a series of overnight raids across the occupied West Bank, making multiple arrests. According to the Wafa news agency, the number of Palestinians detained in the town of Tamun has risen to 55 since Israel intensified its operations in the area on Sunday. These arrests come amid heightened tensions as Israeli forces continue their military operations across the region. The General Director of Field Hospitals in Gaza has accused Israel of disregarding humanitarian protocols. He revealed that 35,000 patients urgently require treatment outside the Strip, but Israeli authorities are blocking the entry of field hospitals and medical teams, which is worsening the already dire humanitarian situation in the occupied enclave. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees, UNRWA, has warned that heavy rains and strong winds in Gaza are putting hundreds of thousands of displaced Palestinians at risk, many of whom lost their homes to Israeli bombardment. UNRWA teams continue to provide emergency aid, including tents and clothing. Torrential downpours have further worsened the humanitarian crisis, flooding makeshift shelters and damaged homes in Jabalia refugee camp, adding to the strain on relief efforts. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has confirmed that his country continues to stand by and express solidarity with the Palestinian people, who are suffering from indescribable hardship due to decades of illegal occupation. In his speech at the opening of the 2025 parliamentary session in Cape Town, Ramaphosa added that South Africa has acted in accordance with its commitments under the Genocide Convention by filing a lawsuit against Israel at the International Court of Justice. UN Undersecretary General for Humanitarian Affairs Tom Fletcher has called for intensified international efforts to provide aid, maintain a ceasefire, and rebuild Gaza. Fletcher further described the devastation as beyond imagination, with homes, schools, and hospitals reduced to rubble. That brings us to the end of our news bulletin. Here's what we've been covering. The International Criminal Court strongly condemns President Trump's sanctions on its officials. President El-Sisi and UN Chief Guterres reaffirm rejection of Gaza displacement, stress Palestinians must remain on their land. And German Chancellor Scholz rejects Trump's Gaza relocation plan. This concludes our news bulletin for the hour. Don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at Qnews EG to stay informed. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for more updates on Q News.